Hi guys, Jeff Joslin here at Joslin Mixed Martial Arts. Recently had a really cool opportunity to interview my father, Rick Joslin, and I sat down and talked to him about his history in training martial arts and the history of our school and different things and different questions that that I've always wanted to ask him. It was really exciting for me to sit down with him and talk with him, and he made me laugh a bunch of times in the interview, and he had some really cool stuff to say. And I learned a lot. Originally I did this video for you guys so you could learn more about my father and learn more about our martial arts school, but it turned out to be just as entertaining for me as well. So hope you enjoy the interview, and thanks for visiting the website. Started off really pretty much with a basic question, just wondering how he got started in the sport and how he came across martial arts training, because I knew that it wasn't that popular back then. A lot of people weren't doing martial arts, and here's his answer to that question.
Well, basically I started in 1965. I was in a motorcycle club at the time, and I remember one of my friends was there, and he started to take it, and he talked me into it. So I started with him, and we really enjoyed it. And he didn't stay with it, and I stayed with it right through to the end, 45 years later. So we started the YMCA. It was something new, and nobody really understood what karate was, and we thoroughly enjoyed the competitions and the conditioning programs. And as I say, it was something a little different, and made some good transitions over the years. Ray Greenway was my first instructor, and then after he moved on, George Beatty was my main instructor for probably most of my career, until I started my own club. Well, I started the first school after 18 months. I got my black belt, so after about 15 months I was a brown belt, and I started at Scotts Park High School, and I had about 40 students there. We had a great bunch of people at that time, just in a back room in the back, and then I was there for 5 years, and then we went to the Jewish Community Center in Delaware, and we opened up a great club there. And we developed probably in the 45, 50 students on a steady basis that went to tournaments and stuff, and we were probably one of the better competition teams around. We went down to Pennsylvania, Montreal, and different things on bus and stuff. So I thought, well, we'll make it a little stronger. Let's make the name a little stronger. We'll open a club outside. And then I left the Jewish Community Center. We opened up here in 1973, and I started with 4 partners, and they didn't really have the same motivation and drive I had. So after about a year, they were getting tired of working out and teaching all the time. And so I took it over and carried it on from then, and it's 45 years later, and they're still all my friends, but they just not in the martial arts business anymore. So that was probably the most exciting time of my life, to take it all over and work it from there. When I left the Jewish Community Center, I got a beautiful letter. I won the Canadian Championship in 1974 on Channel 11. That was the biggest tournament in probably North America. There was 1,500 competitors at the Canadian Open, held by Eastern Karate, and Sam Brownstone, I never forgot, sent me a beautiful letter, and he mentioned how he knew I would succeed, and all the beautiful years we spent with him at the community center. So it was a wonderful relationship we had, and I used to go down and visit them from time to time and sort of go over old things. But moving up and starting a new studio was an exciting venture, and it turned out tremendously successful.
Now, I kind of already knew the answer to the next question that I asked him, but I had to ask it anyways. My dad's a really intense guy, very scrappy, and I knew that he liked the fighting aspect of martial arts, but I wanted to hear from him, and I wanted to hear it in his own words and just see what type of stuff he would add and share with us. So let's go to that answer now.
The sparring probably was my main interest. The conditioning was a big time involvement for me in those days. I mean, I used to run 10, 15 miles. We do 500, 600 sit-ups, push-ups. Oh my God, we trained very hard. And that's why we were probably one of the best, and evolved into the kickboxing 20 years before any club even thought about it.
Now, the next question is actually one that I had for him. Many years you hear about old stories about the kickboxing team, the undefeated fighters that were here, and I look at all the pictures on the walls, and I see these guys, in their fight stance, and in good shape, tough-looking guys, and I see the names, recognize the names, but I didn't really know the whole story. I didn't know exactly what went down in terms of the kickboxing team, the undefeated kickboxing team. So I asked my dad about it, and here's what he said.
Well, we started a kickboxing team in 1974, and we had a phenomenal team. We had 33 fights and 33 wins, no losses. We had Rocky Zollner, who's today. I was really very proud of him. He was in the UFC, Ontario Athletic Commission ring on the main fight in the UFC in Toronto this weekend. So it really made me proud. I love Rocky. Rocky was a great, responsible and caring student. Other guys like John Machine Gun Lambie, Murray Boogaloo Sutherland. Murray was undefeated in kickboxing, 14 fights, knocked out Jean Etherio, knocked out 14 fighters, all in the first and second round. Nobody went 3 rounds with him. And he made a transition to professional boxing. He fought Thomas Hearns, Michael Spinks, Saad Muhammad. He had a great career. And they were all beginners with me right from day one. And then when we made the transition to kickboxing, they were probably one of the first ones to make that transition.
Now, I always lived above the gym, so our basement was pretty much, you know, the martial arts gym was our playground. We'd come down here and play all the time. And my brother and I would play mini hockey down here and different things. And, you know, occasionally on certain weekends, I remember big crowds coming to the gym and fights going on in the ring. And I knew it was like fight nights. They called it fight night. And I wanted to ask my dad a little bit more about that and how those got started. And I wasn't even sure who was fighting on those cards or what really was going on. When you're a kid, you just kind of take it for granted that people are punching and kicking each other in your basement. So here's what my dad said about his fight nights.
We used to sell out here, 300 people coming in to watch amateur fights. Here I ran some cards at Milton Arena, and we had a lot of good fellows that helped us out. Dougie Smith, I remember, he was a great guy. And we had probably 10, 12 fights here, usually every 2 months or so. And we would sell out the night before, and then when the day came, Saturday afternoon came, we'd let another 100 people in at the door that hadn't paid yet.
Now, over the years, you know, around the city, Hamilton, my dad's martial arts school has always been in Hamilton, so I meet a lot of, you know, guys around my dad's age, and they would tell me stories about always the intense training and the crazy stuff that my dad would put them through, and a lot of the rough sparring and different things that it just kind of gave me hints on how tough the training was before. My dad's really kind of a personal guy. He never really comes out and says much to me. I pretty much have to pry for any answers in terms of you know, stuff about the past. But you know, here's enough stuff from other people, so it's really where I get all my facts about a lot of the history of Joslin. So it was kind of cool to get a chance to ask my dad the next question and find out a little bit more about how the kickboxing training was run back in the day.
Because the kickboxing was a very, very rigorous conditioning program. We were probably by far one of the toughest schools around. I mean, we quit karate competitions. We had one of the best karate teams in those days, and we quit the karate tournament circuit for 10 years while we pursued kickboxing. And the conditioning program and so forth, we developed a grading system, so people that would come in, because we had quite a few over the years that would come in and watch us sparring, and they think, oh my God, those guys are killing each other. So we invented the red belt, which meant kickboxing, and then we stayed with the traditional karate for the rest, because people that couldn't decipher the difference between the karate and the kickboxing, and they would think, holy geez, they're killing each other, I don't think I want to join there, so they go to other clubs. So it really wasn't a great business venture, but it wasn't what we were there for. We were there to produce a real self-defense skill. We incorporated with boxing clubs, and Dave Llewellyn and Dave Evans, and guys that were great amateur boxers in Hamilton, and they used to come up here and spar Murray and them, and boy, they'd be knocking each other silly. And it was the first time, in my opinion anyway, that a karate club got great respect from boxing community, that, wow, these guys are good and they're tough.
I think any high-level athlete, anybody who competes a lot, has that special moment that's really memorable for them. It's you know, pretty much the highlight of their career. So I wanted to really find out what his special moment was. I know he had done a lot of competing over the years and a lot of great things, and been around so many years in the sport. I was really interested to see what one of his biggest moments was.
I had won the Canadian Championship, and then I won the first professional event in Hamilton. I won first place forms, kata, and first place sparring. I beat some of the best fighters in the area. And I fought Conroy Nelson. Conroy Nelson went on to fight Trevor Burbeck in the boxing world after, and I remember caught him with a nice hard front kick, because that was very comfortable in a boxing ring, and that's what we were fighting in a boxing ring at McMaster University. And I gave him a beautiful front kick, nice full power, and I knocked him backwards and right out by the ring, and I won that. So I won $1,800 that our team did. I won $1,500, and they won $300 as best team overall. So that was probably a great highlight for us, and it was a Hamiltonian thing, and it was a great that was a great day.
Now, with my dad being, coming from a traditional martial arts background, I really wanted to see his thoughts on the sport of mixed martial arts and just on how popular it's become and just all the things involved with it. And here's what he had to say.
I think it's the greatest thing that ever happened. I mean, it's personally, we've all been searching over the years for, what's real, what works, what doesn't work, and what the Gracies did. I know it upset all of us in the martial arts world at the beginning, but when you see in true essence that they did the perfect thing, and they did it really as gentlemen, because they challenged everybody in a very unique and wonderful, kind way and beat them up. I never forget when I seen some of the fights and different kickboxers that were world champions at the time, and they were extremely good. They were getting the daylights beat out of them, taken to the ground, and they just didn't have that respect for that sport. And I don't know if they ever did develop it, but the outside world started to pick it up and realize how good jiu-jitsu was, and incorporating it with kickboxing and the leg kicks, the Muay Thai, and everything involved now. Even the jiu-jitsu is no good by itself. I mean, it's incorporated where at the beginning it was the best, and now wrestling background, boxing background, Muay Thai background, karate background, as Machida and all of them have shown. You have to have it all, and when you have it all, it's one heck of a self-defense system.
Now, it's actually with my dad. He's the one who reminds me half the time of UFC cards coming up. So he's like, Jeff, where are you watching the fights tonight? He's been watching a lot of the cards and following it pretty closely. And but I really didn't know what kind of fighter was his favorite. I know he likes a few certain ones, but did he like the strikers? Did he like the ground fighters, the wrestlers? So that's what I asked him next, and here's what he had to say.
Basically, I enjoyed it all. I think it's nice to see the nice transitions and the different things. If you know enough about it and you can appreciate all the concepts of it. I mean, even the jiu-jitsu guys or judo guys that don't understand the boxing skills probably don't appreciate the full combinations that are being thrown in boxing. Boxing wouldn't see the wrestling. So when you're a little bit more open-minded, I think the whole concept is phenomenal. I think you can enjoy all parts of it, as Frank Mir showed in the last fight with getting punched out and out-skilled, and I mean that should have been the end of the fight if it was a punching thing, but then he turned on and showed some of the best jiu-jitsu ever shown, and breaks the guy's shoulder of a guy that's well-schooled in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So it wasn't like he was doing it to a beginner. I mean, these kids are so high skill level now, it's remarkable, and I think it's just astonishing what they can do with it. It's beautiful.